to another episode of What's Brewing with Mobile Cup of Joe. Hey, I am your host, the bearded barista Alvy, and welcome. And thank you guys so much for letting us be a part of your monthly, daily, weekly routine, however it may be. We have a really interesting, good show I'm excited about. We've got some Windows stuff to go over, Cortana for Android. Maybe there's a possibility we're able to keep Chuck in the Android family. He's trying to go to iPhone, so we'll talk about that a little bit. Some T-Mobile news. So we've got a little bit of everything, even some Windows or some Amazon activities. They were interesting this week. We'll talk about that too. But we've got an interesting show, so thank you guys so much for joining us. If you're listening on the podcast or watching us live or watching us later, thank you guys so much. A few things before we start talking to our brew crew here. If you want to get in touch with us, pretty much the best way to do that's on the socials. Hashtag MCOJBrew is the best way to get in touch with us. And that hits all the socials, Twitter, MySpace, Instagram, Facebook, GeoCities, whatever it is. So hashtag MCOJBrew. We keep an eye on that. So if you have a question, comment, concern, or rebuttal about anything we're talking about tonight, or if you just have a regular question for us, we'll be happy to hit that up and talk to you about that. But if you are listening or watching live, you can hit us in the event page. And if you're listening on the podcast, thanks and welcome. But just hit the hashtag MCOJBrew. So let's go ahead and talk to our brew crew. A little light again this week. It's summertime, so the weather is fine, and we are feeling froggy and frisky. So let's go ahead and talk to some of these guys. Greg, Tony, and Joe are all out, so we do miss you guys. So if you guys wanted to say anything to them, just send them a little shout-out on the socials. Tell them that you missed them. But we do have Mr. Ones and Zeros, Chuck Haynes, trying to get a little bit of fresh cup of water before we start talking everything. He's going to have a lot to talk about, so yes, hydrate, my friend. Don't be parched. You don't want to hear that gross mouth noise that happens when our mouths get dry. So yes, Ones and Zeros, Chuck, how are you, my friend? Tell us a little bit about your week.
I am doing excellent, Yeah, for some reason, I don't know, allergies have kicked into high gear around here. I guess the 115-degree weather has brought that along, so... Yeah, a little warm here in Kansas this week, so trying to stay cool. Not too much going on. Finishing up a couple reviews. Should have my review on the Blue Studio C going live on the Mobile Cup of Joe blog this weekend. Working on the LG G-Watch Urbane review. Should see that sometime next week. And then I will be gone... definitely 2 weeks from now, possibly next week, I will be on vacation in Cancun and will be turning off absolutely every electronic device I have. So I will be completely dark for a week. Definitely looking forward to that.
That's my favorite thing about going on a vacation like that is just the disconnect part of it. That's the best part of it. Like it's nice to kind of like unplug yourself and reboot yourself a little bit.
Yep, I have planned. Don't plan to not even know what time it is. So.
Just let me know when it's time to come back home, and I'll just see you then. Excellent. And also, we got back from the dead, Fred. We've missed you. I hadn't seen you in a while,
hey guys.
Fred. How are you? Tell us a little bit about what's going on for you.
Well, it's more of a temperate 80 degrees or so here in New Jersey. Although we did have a couple of days in the 90s as well. Things are pretty quiet here as well. Working, living, playing with some toys. I've got my first foray into Android wear, courtesy of Chuck Haynes, who has passed on his Samsung Gear Live to me, and I doubt this is going to show well on the screen, but I do have the official MCOJ watch face going
Excellent.
Here.
Nice.
And the jury is still out. It's, as I said, it's my first few days into Android wear, trying to determine just how functional it is and how much use and enjoyment I'm going to get out of it. I pretty much gave up wearing a watch when I started carrying a cell phone all the time, and the functionality was duplicated, but obviously this is a lot cooler than even the Casio watches of the 80s and so on that let you store data, which I didn't have much of affinity to. This is getting a little closer to the Dick Tracy watch that I've yearned for since childhood, so let's check back in a week or two and I'll let you guys know how it's going. And I guess that's about all that's new and exciting at the moment.
It's still good. Yeah, we've missed you, or I've missed you. I hadn't seen you in a while here in the chats and on the show and all that. So, but yeah, as far as Android Wear, I still to this day, and I've had it for almost 8 months now. My Zen watch, it's fantastic, and I recommend everybody get one. But it is kind of Dick Tracy-ish, so you just kind of feel kind of geeky and cool, all that kind of way stuff too. So, but anyway, yeah, let's go ahead and get started. We've got some freshly brewed news to get started. But before we do that, we do want to thank our sponsor, which is Audible.com, for sponsoring this episode. And you, watchers and listeners, if you'd like to download and listen to one of 180,000 titles you can pick from your selection, just go to audibletrial.com/mobilecupofjoe for your free 30-day trial and a free download and listen of any audiobook of your choosing. There's a whole bunch of good stuff in there. There's stuff on coffee and tea, which I like to read about and all that kind of stuff. There's technology books. There's self-help books. There's also plenty of the classics, so if you're doing your summer readings and all that kind of stuff and you need to catch up, it's a lot easier to listen to it than read it. For me, I'm a very slow reader, but I can listen just as fast as anybody else. And they have very fantastic, well-read by like voice actors and actors that you know books. John Grisham is some of my favorite stuff to listen to. It's fantastic. So go to audibletrial.com/mobilecupofjoe for your free audio trial or free trial to audible.com. But let's go ahead and get started with some freshly brewed news. We'll go ahead and start at the top with Amazon Prime Day. Chuck, Amazon Prime Day, flip or flop?
Flop, I think. I didn't actually participate a ton in it. I did try and catch a couple deals, but everything I tried to catch seemed to be gone, like the second you tried to actually click on it. And actually Amazon, which is kind of funny, because Amazon's site going down, you kind of think of like Google's site going down, like they're cloud providers.
Right.
You'd think they'd be able to handle the traffic, but there was quite a few periods of time where the Amazon site was very unresponsive, or you couldn't get to certain parts of the site. It didn't seem to happen all the time. They didn't have like a Google I/O debacle where you couldn't use the site at all. But there was times here and there. So I actually didn't pick anything up. I know that Joe tried to get a couple things and wasn't successful. I don't know, Fred, did you try and get anything?
I made one attempt. I was scrolling through lists of upcoming deals, and nothing was really kind of jumping off the page at me, although I found what was a pretty good deal on just a lightning cable for my wife's iPhone, which she happens to be in need of a spare on right now. Waited, watched the thing until the moment of truth when it went live, clicked that second, watched the waiting for I don't know, a good minute or two, and when it landed, it told me that I had missed it. 0% were left, and I was number 486 in the waiting list with a poor chance of making it in. So that was my only attempt, and it was supposed to be bigger than Black Friday, but I'm not really a Black Friday participant either. So kind of maybe a flop, bordered on flop in any event.
To me,
my perspective.
I've yet to see on any socials or anybody I personally know or anything, anybody that got anything. Everybody I know almost got something or got something small like a cable or whatever, but all these like huge deals, it's like everybody missed them.
Yeah, I saw the same thing. I mean, I don't think I actually saw. As a matter of fact, I think I saw quite a few memes or memes or however you say it. Memes, whatever, that quite a few people had posted, and I think my favorite one was, the guy going to the fridge, all happy, opening up the fridge, and then like, as he realizes there's nothing in the fridge. It's like,
exactly.
This was me on Amazon Prime Day. So,
And it's just weird. As big as they like promoted it, like it almost would have done better if they did like the sneaky thing, and like, hey, today things are going on, but they promoted it so big that it was like destined for failure to do it this way. So it reminds me a lot of the invite system that we've seen on certain carriers or anything like that. It's like you can't get anything, but if you could have got awesome stuff.
Yeah, or randomize it like so different people see it. Of course, people probably would have had a problem with that too. But randomize it so different people see different things and actually have a chance to get some things that they see.
Just really, really, really weird, but yeah. Hey, I guess Amazon's learning how to do things too. They don't really know how to do phones either. They kind of flopped on that Fire phone, so they're learning. God bless them, right? All right, so let's talk a little bit about some Windows. Chuck, I know we keep coming back to you. You are our Windows 10 aficionado, so tell us a little bit about Windows 10 and what's going on this week with it.
Yeah, it seems I guess I've become recently a Windows fan, for lack of a better terminology, which I never, like I've said in the past shows, I never would have thought. But I did get the Surface 3. I have been enjoying it. Been running Windows 10 on it, and it's a completely new, experience. So Windows 10 went supposedly RTM this week, although they're not actually officially saying that the build that everyone got this week was RTM. For those of you guys who aren't familiar with RTM, RTM means release to manufacture. July 29th is the actual date for Windows 10 release. Although not everyone will get it on that date, they're kind of staggering the release to not hammer their servers, which makes sense. Some people aren't happy with that, but their servers can only handle so much bandwidth. But they did release a brand new build out to all Windows insiders this week. 10240 was the build number, which everyone is speculating is the release to manufacture. The actual build that they send, release to manufacture, in the old days, everyone got theirs on DVD or CD, so they would call it the Gold Master.
Or floppy disk.
Or floppy disk. And so it literally was a golden CD that they would send to, to be mass-produced to actually put out on the market. Well, obviously, in today's, they don't... although, you will be able to get Windows 10 on a USB drive.
Really?
Yeah, I did see that this week. So apparently they'll be selling Windows 10 on USB drives. I think they cost like $110, or 100 something. Very fancy USB drive. Woohoo! Yeah. So, but Windows 10, I think, is a free upgrade. So to anyone who's on Windows 8 or I think Windows 7 as well. So most people are going to go that route. They're going to update it. So that did go RTM this week. I've got the build locally. It is definitely a release quality build. There was some kind of nagging bugs that I've had, none of which seem to be in this build. So it definitely looks like an awesome build. So it probably is the one that everyone is eventually going to get. Some notable features about Windows 10, we talked about last week, so I won't really, harp on it again because we definitely talked about it a lot last week. But, I think the biggest thing for most people is going to be that they have two modes now. They have what they call their tablet mode, and they have their desktop mode. And really the biggest difference between the two of those is how the start menu looks. When you're in tablet mode, it's kind of the same start menu you have right now in Windows 8. It's the big start menu on the screen with the big live tiles, but they also do kind of have a navigation that you can bring in from the left-hand side, which is your more traditional start menu, like list of programs, that kind of stuff. Desktop mode is actually the old start menu. So you click it, it'll be just like the old Windows 7 start menu, and then off to the side will actually be your live tiles. So they're still going to have live tiles even in desktop mode, but they'll be bringing back the old start menu. So that's probably the biggest thing people are going to see, when they first launch it. And it has the ability to switch on the fly. Like, for example, with the Surface 3, if you attach the keyboard, it can switch into desktop mode if you want it to. When you detach the keyboard, it can switch into tablet mode, and there's different settings. And then the other biggest difference is desktop mode. Even the Metro, which is, or whatever they're calling them these days, the Windows apps that are written for the newer version of Windows, they're still windowed instead of full screen like they always used to be. In desktop mode. In tablet mode, they're still full screen now, and of course you can do the split screen. So those are kind of the two biggest things that people are going to see as the biggest difference when they first get Windows 10. Overall, I highly, highly recommend it. It is incredibly stable. It does a lot of things right, and you get Cortana too. That's right, you're going to get Cortana, which is Microsoft's take on Google Now. You can think of it like that. It's pretty cool. It's definitely I would say close to as smart as Google Now, but not quite there. It doesn't have all of the picking up from your email stuff that Google Now has. But as far as asking it questions and showing stuff, I'd say it's pretty comparable to Google Now. So definitely something I'm looking forward to. Not that I would use Windows 10 full time, but it's definitely something that I would use as a secondary device.
Now, I'm interested in Cortana, especially on the Windows platform, because you said it's not as good as Google Now because it's not as integrated. So is it really much better than I guess Siri, which I'm slightly unfamiliar with too, but at least I know it's good for asking questions and good for voice searches, but not so much for knowing you enough to actually be a helper, a digital helper.
Yeah, Cortana is much better with knowing you and contextual information. Kind of like, so it's not quite Google Now on tap, which is what we're going to get with Android M. And Siri actually is becoming very contextual in iOS 9. So I think that once iOS 9 comes out, and Siri kind of gets the contextual, and Google Now gets the Google Now on tap, I think Microsoft's going to have to really step up the Cortana game to kind of bring it back on. But right now, it's definitely right there in the mix with them.
Well, yeah, and that's interesting because, I mean, and everybody's like really doing that whole digital assistant thing. Like, Siri started it, then Google Now is doing their stuff. They're even improving to Google Now on tap and all that. So interesting to see what Cortana ends up being. I know what their like dream and vision is for it, but interesting to see what it ends up being. I don't know, Fred, have you had a chance much to mess with really any of the digital assistants? I know you've done some AI work in the past. You messed with Cortana much?
Well, I have messed with Cortana because I was carrying a Windows phone as my daily driver for a good 6 or 8 months or so. And I did enjoy Cortana. A couple of comments on Cortana compared to Google Now and other Google voice search stuff was that voice recognition seemed surprisingly accurate compared to Google Now and Google in general, in spite of the fact that Google has been collecting my data for years in terms of voice recognition. Windows seemed to be right out of the box, coming in with at least as high of a level of accuracy as I was getting on Google. The other thing that I did enjoy was that I was getting a lot more local specific news stories in my feed from Cortana than Google Now seems to be giving me. Google Now seems to be good at guessing the kind of stuff that I want to read based on what it sees me reading. And again, Cortana doesn't seem to have as much, as you said, contextual relevance, but I wonder if that's because it's just starting to gather the data, whereas Google has been keeping a profile on us and tracking our patterns for years already. So it'll be interesting to watch how it goes. Microsoft is deep into, as I keep saying, deep into AI, at least as much as Google is, so it'll be interesting to see where they go with it.
Yeah, because I know you've done some articles and stuff on the Microsoft AI, which is like really crazy and phenomenal where they are with it. So to see like Cortana, like I guess kind of a start of it on their mobile stuff, or at least the computer side of things and all that. Just kind of interesting to see where we're going with that. Yeah. And I'm not sure what happened with your video, Fred, but as far as I know, we're all able to hear you. So that
you can't see me at all.
No, I can't see. I can see you in this.
That's odd. I can see me in my little monitor window here. Maybe I need to leave and come back. Should we try it?
Yeah, go ahead and do that, and we'll talk around you while you're doing all that kind of stuff. So sorry for the technical troubles, everybody, if you're watching. But Fred's going to leave for a moment and be right back. So Chuck and I will continue to talk about Cortana because Cortana released not only with Windows 10 RTM, the gold version, but also on Android. So Chuck, tell me a little bit about Cortana on Android.
So Cortana on Android, actually it's very similar to what you're going to get with Windows 10. So it's very much the ask me a question, get me an answer, show me the local news kind of thing. So you can almost think of it like a Google Now replacement. Although, the biggest problem on Android is Google Now is inherently integrated into Android. It knows about the apps. Apps can integrate in there with it. You can say, okay, Google Now from any screen and have it activated, or go with your watch. So Cortana is awesome. I actually, I was looking here on my Surface 3 real quick to check something, and I do actually have to say I agree with Fred in that Cortana, as far as news goes, is much better than Google Now. Like Cortana has a news near me section, and even me living in the middle of nowhere, it's actually shockingly relevant near me news. So currently it's showing me about the Kansas can help grow butterfly farms.
Wonderful.
So that's news around here. But anyway, it was leaked today, and then I think it's actually on on the Google Play Store now, or at least I saw someone link to it, so you might actually be able to get it from the Play Store. But it's going to kind of be the same experience of what you would expect from Google Now. Ask it what's the weather, ask it what's my schedule, tell it to remind you, to send a text message, basically a lot of the similar things if you're familiar with Google Now and talking to your phone. And like we said before, it's going to show you the news. It can read your calendar and show your upcoming schedule when you pop it right there. So it's got a lot of similarities, to Google Now. I think the biggest problem it has on Android is the fact that Android's owned by Google, and Google Now can be deeply integrated into Android. However, here comes my conspiracy theory since we're talking about Cortana. I am convinced that the next version of CyanogenMod OS does not have Google Now, but rather has Cortana built into it to replace Google Now.
Well, that would make sense, but back up your theory. Tell us why.
Well, so Cyanogen has they've got his partnership with Microsoft. They announced it quite some time ago to deeply integrate Microsoft services into their Android ecosystem. And they've been talking about forever taking Android away from Google and back into the community, although are they really giving it back to the community just by switching to some other big company? I don't know. But, based on their previous statements they've made, and the fact that they've started bundling Microsoft Office, I don't know if instead of Google Drive, but presumably instead of Google Drive, they're going to start bundling Office. What is their Google Drive?
OneDrive.
OneDrive, yes, OneDrive. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, bundling that. And so now that Cortana's coming out for Android, why not deeply integrate that into Cyanogen? And then you're just going to, kind of further extend yourself away from Google. Plus, let's get a little bit more conspiracy theory here. Google is writing off how much of Nokia's phone business and laying off how many people, and they're claiming that no, we're not stopping with Windows Phone. We're really not. But they're investing pretty heavily in CyanogenMod. So I'm just going to throw my conspiracy theories out there.
Well, and if nothing else, you heard it here first, right? I mean,
exactly.
I don't know. What do you think? I know you love a good conspiracy theory. What do you think about it?
I'm sorry. I love a good conspiracy theory as much as the next guy, but don't conspiracy theories have to have murders in them or insidious black flag operations
the
or
murder
evil government guys? I mean, we're just talking about software now, guys.
Well, you don't know what backhanded dealings, maybe CyanogenMod is hiring Black Ops now to go in and infiltrate Google. How
Oh, man.
I'm sure they do, and in both directions. There's no question about that.
Oh, espionage and a good conspiracy theory. I love it. But no, seriously, Fred, I know you got some kind of thought on this. What do you think about that?
It'll be interesting to see. I find it hard to predict where CyanogenMod is going right now. They seem to have kind of a grandiose self-image, and there is some reason that there's some connection with Microsoft there. So let's I'll reserve judgment, but and it's possible.
Yeah, I've got nothing. Chuck is better on conspiracy theories, and Fred knows better than I do. But it's just a weird marriage, the Microsoft and CyanogenMod thing. Like to see what actually ever comes from it, because there's really nothing evident just yet. So I guess time will tell. But you heard it here first. Chuck has called the death of Google via Microsoft and
not the death of Google. No.
Hey, that's what they say. They say they're going to take Android away and kill Google. So
well, all right, they're dumb.
Yes.
So no, they're not going to kill Google. But I do see them differentiating themselves from stock Android or the other Android phones by bundling Microsoft and Microsoft services deeply. Instead of Google services.
No, I can go with that. Yeah, I can definitely go with that. So I guess time will tell. We'll see in the next year or so where we end up with that. But let's talk a little bit about, while we're talking about conspiracy theories and Canada and Mexico. I don't know, that's a terrible segue. We usually better. But T-Mobile has brought LTE roaming to Canada and Mexico. Who would like to go ahead and take that and free me from terrible segues?
Fred, you're a T-Mobile customer. Have you heard anything about this, or kind of kept track of it at all?
I'm a T-Mobile customer. I've heard about it. I haven't been traveling much lately, and although I do some international calling, it's not typically Canada and Mexico. But the news which is out there for the taking is that T-Mobile's included territory now includes all of North America. Canada and Mexico are included in not only free calling, as far as I know, on unlimited calling plans and so forth, but you can also roam into those areas and use your phone as you would in the U.S. So just another example of T-Mobile, I guess, expansion and kind of raising the bar for the other carriers. So do you guys think that the other carriers will follow suit and start including Canada and Mexico?
That's a good question. Because, well, hasn't T-Mobile always had some better international roaming and all that than the other guys anyway?
2G, yeah. So they've included how many countries free roaming with 2G.
Okay.
But this is LTE now in Mexico and Canada.
Well, that's different. I didn't know it was just 2G. So it was what, voice and text and 2G?
Yeah.
Before. Okay. Well, that is a bigger deal then. So I didn't understand that's how it was working. So I don't know. I mean, I pressure from somebody as big as T-Mobile, I think can push the bigger guys to do stuff like this. So yeah, Fred, I would think so. I don't know. What do you think, Chuck?
I would hope so. I would like to see more roaming agreements, even if it's just Mexico and Canada. Going to Mexico in 2 weeks, it'd be nice. To have a better roaming agreement. So, I don't know. See, this is one of those things where it's nice, but see, I guess T-Mobile has a presence there to be able to do it, where some of the other carriers like Verizon probably doesn't, because they're CDMA, and so they probably don't. So, I would like to see the other carriers do it, but I'm not sure this is one of the things that the other carriers are really going to follow suit with.
Do you think we'll ever get to a point where it's kind of like you just have service and it's like worldwide service?
No, but I hope we do.
Okay, fair enough. I don't know. What do you think, Fred? Do you know enough about it to know if we'll ever get worldwide, or at least something better than what we've got now?
Hard to predict, but it seems that so much of telecommunications is based on international tariffs and somebody making money on making those connections between the continents, that it seems hard to imagine that they're going to release their grip on that. But yet, the reality of things is that internet being what it is, it almost doesn't matter in the long run. Once you're connected, once you're on the grid, so to speak, it's not that much harder and that much costlier to get a signal from New York to San Francisco as it is to get a signal from New York to Paris once the infrastructure is there. So, things are becoming cheaper and more things are free or included in basic telephone service than ever used to be. But I don't know if we'll see free calling all over the world.
Well, you bring up a good point, and I can't speak tonight. As far as like just the infrastructure and all that, because I've talked about it a bunch on here. I use Google Hangouts as my exclusive like phone provider of this, kind of like a Google MVNO, if you will. And no matter where I am, if I've got data at all, so Wi-Fi or not, I can make a phone call to anywhere that has a phone. So I don't know. Maybe there's workarounds instead of using the telecommunications side of it so much, you just use data kind of thing. Because if I went to the middle of nowhere, and as long as I had a Wi-Fi or some type of global data connection or whatever, I can make phone calls out of it. So I don't know, maybe kind of work around that way instead of trying to do the tariffs. Because I see what you're saying with that, because that's kind of where all the governments get involved, and yeah, they're not going to let go.
Yeah, and still somebody owns those pipes that go under the water, and somebody wants to keep making money off of them.
Yeah, you got that right. Absolutely. Canada and Mexico for T-Mobile. And also, Chuck, I know you're going to miss out on this because you'll be out of town, but Motorola has an announcement on July 28th. Do we have any idea what this is about?
Well, we can assume a new phone, but no. So, well, okay, we can pretty much assume it one or multiple new phones. So, Motorola has announced they will be doing a event in London, Sao Paulo. Is that how you pronounce it?
Sure.
And New York, all simultaneous. Something on July 28th. And the announcement says, yes, we're in a relationship with our phone. We feel lost without it. We trust them with our most personal questions, photos, stories, and secrets. They never leave our side, but shouldn't all that care and devotion you show be returned? A better mobile relationship is on its way. Join us July 28th to find out how we're changing things for the better. So we can assume a new phone. Maybe the Moto X3. This is about the right time frame for that. Maybe the Moto G 3rd gen. This maybe. I don't know. I don't know when the 2nd gen was announced. Maybe the Moto 362, whatever they're calling it, the 720, or you know. So I don't know. But I can say that I'm super excited. We have seen, 3 Motorola phones go through the FCC this last week. One is presumably the Kinsey phone we've been hearing about, which could be the Moto X3. One's been possibly a Verizon Droid phone. Thank you, Verizon, for ruining that phone. And then, so the Droid Turbo last year on Verizon got Lollipop 6 months after it was released or something.
Right.
I don't know. Anyway, so but one thing I will say is I hope that Verizon isn't passing on the X3 just for a droid. So anyway, we don't actually know. I don't know anything or have seen any rumors other than the Moto X3, possibly a Moto G. I don't know. Maybe they'll do the droid then. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited. I definitely might get the Moto X3, depending upon how it looks. The Moto X2 certainly had much better signal than my Nexus 6 did, or my Nexus 6 does. So signal has always been a good strength for the Moto X. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Moto X2 to this date is still one of the best phones that's ever been released, and it's still like very relevant and still usable and still a really good phone. So a new Moto X3 or whatever they're going to call it, I can go with that. But it's a really weird like primer. What they're saying is like the relationship thing. It almost sounds like, where you've been talking about Cortana and digital assistants and all that kind of stuff. It sounds like more of a foray into that than just a new phone. That's a weird way to like prime a new phone.
Well, so the other thing is that the Moto X3 that went through the FCC supposedly was a single phone with all the radios for the U.S. carriers. So maybe it's going to have Google Fi support. Maybe they're going to do something with that. Maybe that's the difference in your experience. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows what they've got up their sleeve?
Well, we'll find out in 12 days or so. July 28th. Today's the 17th, so quick math escapes me. 11 days. 2 weeks from now, we'll know. How about that? I don't know. What do you think, Fred? Come on, conspiracy theory. Help me out.
I honestly don't know what Motorola is up to next. I've been kind of a long-term fan of Motorola phones, so I'll be excited to see it when it comes, but can't predict where they're going.
Well, this is true.
But if there's an event in New York City, we should try to get Mobile Cup of Joe in there to cover it.
Yeah, we should.
Should we not? Should we not?
Yes, we definitely should. We should figure out how to get you in there.
Yeah. Yeah, we know a guy near New York that would love to go to an event such as that. So
yes, I have to look for some Motorola contacts.
Yeah, see what we can work out. I don't know. I don't buy. It's just a weird way to like promote that. It's just weird to say all those things and it just be a phone, which is a normal phone, wearable, and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. But in this day and age, with so many leaks and all that, this close to the event, it's surprising that we haven't seen, especially if it's something like groundbreaking or anything, we would see something coming through at this point.
Yeah, but I mean, Apple does the same thing with their announcements too, right? They have this little cute thing that they send out, and it ends up just being the next iPad.
Right. It's going to change the world. It's the iPad 3.
Exactly. So.
But one more thing. iPad 3. All right, so let's talk a little bit of non-techy, still kind of sciencey, techy news. Fred is going to share a little bit about my favorite non-planet, Pluto. It's okay, Pluto. I'm not a planet either. I still love you. A bunch of really cool stuff happened this week. But Fred, share a little bit about Pluto.
So the most interesting thing I saw about Pluto, or apropos to your comment, Alvy, was a little cartoon with Pluto. Picture of Pluto there, and it says, so first you dumped me, and now you go driving by my house real slow taking pictures.
I did see that. I thought that was great.
That's funny.
So anyway, Pluto, I grew up with Pluto as a planet. Is it a planet? Is it not a planet? Is it a subplanet or whatever? I don't know. Whatever it is, New Horizons, the current space expedition, has approached Pluto, for those of you that haven't been paying attention, and has gotten some really cool close-up photos and some really interesting data about Pluto and about, I believe it is Charon, which is the largest moon of Pluto. So Pluto, we now know, is a little smaller than everybody expected, but there were a couple of surprises. One is that it's got a very rough terrain, and that what look like mountains turn out to actually be ice mountains for the most part. There are some deep ravines. Apparently, Charon, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, has a valley or a gorge larger than the Grand Canyon. And the other thing that's pretty interesting is that there are in Pluto's atmosphere, or I guess in the ice of Pluto, a significant amount of methane, which is interesting and significant because methane is a very primitive organic compound. It doesn't mean that it was produced by life. It doesn't mean that there is life there, but it does mean that it has the building blocks, or at least one fundamental building block of life, as do all the planets of the solar system, it seems. And for those of you who have not seen it, the photos are really cool. If you're an astronomy fan or just enjoy looking at pictures of heavenly bodies, there are some great photos of Pluto. We waited for them for a long time. You can look at NASA's site, and stuff is picked up and mirrored in a bunch of other places. So Pluto fans, Pluto lovers, check the stuff out.
Yeah, that's really. I love Pluto. Like just grandfather him in and let him be a planet. But it's really cool to see these pictures, and especially in such like vivid detail. Because I mean, up until right before it was kind of like just almost a drawing. Like, this is kind of what we think Pluto looks like. So it's neat to get all this new, vivid, detailed information from a thing, whatever it is you want to call it. I'm calling it a planet. They're so far away. Like, we see the moon and we have some images of that, but that's like right there. But Pluto being so far away, really interesting to see what all they've got. And I guess other information that they get from it and all that. I don't know, Chuck, did you keep up with the Pluto announcement much?
I did. I'm actually, I'm always kind of a space geek. I like to see the pictures when they do like that kind of stuff, and just to think about, it's always amazing to me because it took how long for this probe to get to Pluto? What's it been? How Fred? 10 years, 15 years? I mean, it's been quite a while.
I don't have that at my fingertips, but yes, it has been a while.
So, thinking about, we can't even, keep Windows running for 30 minutes, and they've got this thing running for 15 years going. And the other cool thing is, the technology that goes into these things that they send into space. I mean, this thing has to run essentially autonomously for 15 years, and the way that they've got the path, figured out so that, I believe, was it Jupiter or Saturn? They used some planet to actually help it slingshot itself faster so that it could actually get to Pluto, faster. So, like, the things that they can do, it's absolutely amazing to me, just to watch this happen, and to know that, the motherboard on this thing is probably an 86, not a 186, an 86 processor, like, what runs our toaster these days, and they're doing all this awesome stuff with it. So yeah, I haven't probably kept up as much as I'd like to, but it's fascinating to me to see all this kind of stuff, see the imagery and see things. And yeah, it'll always be a planet to me because my very educated mother served me 9 pizzas, of course.
Absolutely.
So
they've had to change the whole, what do they call it, a mnemonics?
Yeah. So I'm like, you can't use that. What do you use now?
That serves us, I don't know, served us nachos maybe, I don't know.
Maybe.
So, but you bring up a good point, Chuck, and I really never thought about it, and I don't know how many other people do. Like, we get this new information, and it's here today, and especially as fast as news moves and travels and all that, we just assume this is like, an HD camera they just sent up there 2 weeks ago or whatever to get these pictures. But you're talking, let's say 10 years, which we know is a low estimate. 10 years ago, we were running, we didn't even have, we were on flip phones and had no smartphones, and that's the kind of stuff we're sending out into space to do all that stuff. Very good point. I didn't even really think about that. I don't know that.
And it's able to communicate these high resolution photos, which is fantastic also.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. We didn't have high definition stuff back then. So what did they send out that sends back images so clear? Lord knows I do not know. But what I do know is Chuck, man, moments too late to attach it to the news story we were talking about, just got some breaking news. This just in. Chuck, right. Chuck, go ahead and tell us. Let's back up one. Chuck got some interesting breaking news on the July 28th announcement for Motorola. Go ahead, Chuck, to you.
Yeah, so I got my, Morse code over here. I'm reading it off the old ticker over here. So supposedly, I just saw it on Google Plus, and it's from a fairly known leaker of Motorola stuff that the announcement will be the Moto X3. It's apparently going to be a 5.5-inch phone. It looks like it has kind of a hybrid Moto X2 and Droid Turbo kind of look to it. It looks like it's got a different backing, and they've changed the backing a little bit. But supposedly the off-contract price is going to be $500. So it's going to essentially be an extremely affordable phone, and it should be an awesome phone. If the rumors are true, it's going to be either a Snapdragon 808 or maybe an 810. It's supposedly going to have 4 gigs of RAM. 3100 or 3200 milliamp hour battery, and a really nice camera. So Motorola might have actually pulled all the stops out on this one, so we'll see.
Yeah, all of that sounds very expected flagship for late 2015, except for the price tag. If that price tag is true, $500 off of contract, you're looking free or $100 on contract, which please don't use contracts. But
exactly.
That aside, a $500 price tag for a brand new phone, if you're not used to buying off contract, is typically $650 to $800 for a flagship phone that's typically like that. So for $500 off of contract, that's really good.
Yep. And the 2016 flagship killer, yes, I did say 2016 flagship killer, the OnePlus 2.
The 3.
Well, no, the OnePlus 2. It was actually in the news. It was, I don't know what news reported on it, but they were calling the OnePlus 2 the 2016 flagship killer.
Wow, yeah. No.
And supposedly that one's going to come in at less than $450, which might be $449.
That's what that usually means, yeah.
So, yeah, good for Motorola.
Well, and good for consumers. I mean, we're the ones that win on all this kind of stuff. When everybody starts dropping prices like that, we're all able to get really good phones, which also means your budget phones, which we've discussed this on the show before, your budget phones come up in quality too, because if you can get flagship for $500, then a $200 phone really needs to like up its game.
Yes.
So interesting. I don't know. What do you think, Fred? You just got the Moto X 2.5 with that Nexus that you've got over there. So
I am very happy with the Nexus. I'm actually at the moment. I just pulled up some interesting information on New Horizons. It's not a flash bulletin like the Moto announcement, but it does clarify a couple of things that we were talking about. But have we covered enough Motorola? I just wanted to touch on.
Yeah, we flash back up.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, the mission launched in January of 2006, so 9 years, 5 months ago, and the Wikipedia article, good old Wikipedia, actually has some information on the payload, so to speak, of the mission as well as the equipment that they're carrying. Including the computer system, and I'm sorry, I had it and just lost it here. Here we go. Power flight computer. Here we go. The spacecraft carries 2 computer systems: the command and data handling system and the guidance and control processor. There's redundancy, so there's a total of 4 computers. I don't really know these specs, but the processor in the flight computers is the Mongoose V, a 12 megahertz radiation-hardened version of the MIPS R3000 CPU. So I don't really know where that stands, but obviously it's 2006 technology, even if it was cutting edge in 2006, it's 9-year-old technology. And there's a lot about the communication system as well. They've got a high gain antenna, which is a fairly significant sized dish. I just find it astounding that we can now get in relatively short time these super high definition photos that they're taking up there. Here, I still remember, I'm dating myself more once again, but I still remember the first moonwalk, which is, we're almost up to the anniversary. I think it was July 20th or 21st, 1969, but sitting up kind of late at night for me as a 9-year-old kid with the television, watching Neil Armstrong climb out of that thing and down, and it was just a blur of gray and white. You couldn't make out anything whatsoever, and that was the moon, which is what, 240,000 miles away, and now we're at the edge of the solar system and getting these super high-res photos.
I love it. I do. I really geek out and get nerdy when it's talking about all that kind of stuff. I don't know. Space is just kind of crazy out there. It's like, it's kind of like the depths of the ocean too for me. Like there's just like so much we don't know about it. So, but especially like what you're saying, like all this antiquated technology that we wouldn't even trust to automate our home is out there in space and delivering these fantastic photos. So, very cool. Very cool. Well, that does bring us to the end of our show. I know it's been kind of all over the place a little bit. We've gone back and forth, but we did cover all of our topics, and we got some interesting information and news and all that kind of stuff. So, but before we conclude everything, Chuck, remind everybody what you're doing over the next couple of weeks and all that, so we can know what to look out for on Mobile Cup of Joe and also in your personal life. You can go ahead and brag about your Cancun trip.
Well, so like I said earlier, with my review on the Blue Studio C that Fred has been graciously editing will be up on the Mobile Cup of Joe blog this weekend. And then I'm finishing up my LG G Watch Urbane review, which will probably be out sometime next week. And then I might do a little op-ed on why I'm in love with the Surface 3. So we'll see. Other than that, not a whole lot going on. Taking my kids to a fishing derby tomorrow, so that's going to be fun. And then, of course, next Friday, be flying to Cancun for a week, so that's definitely going to be exciting.
Okay, I'm unfamiliar. What's a fishing derby?
A fishing derby. So basically, they hold it every year here in the town I live in. It's for kids. They stock the local pond with fish, and kids get to come and fish for free for like 2 hours. And they've got prizes for like the biggest fish, the most fish, all those kind of things. So it's just something fun for the kids to do. My kids love to fish. I take them fishing all the time. But this is kind of nice in the fact that they stock the pond, so you're guaranteed to catch fish.
That's cool. Okay, yeah, that sounds like.
Do they wear derbies when they do it, or that's irrelevant?
What about you, Fred? What's going on for you the next little bit, bud?
Oh, kind of more of the same. Let's see. I'll probably be back and see you guys before then next Friday, but the following Sunday, a week from this coming Sunday, I will be playing a little solo acoustic guitar, maybe with a couple of guests, at the Ramsey Farmers Market in Ramsey, New Jersey, which is a really cool open-air market every Sunday in the summer. And my wife is there as well with her Blue Lotus Botanical line of products. Get my little plug in there and get hers in. I've got a bunch of stuff that I've got to find time to review from CE Week and so on. Most recent arrivals that have landed here at Shoal Labs have been 2 sets of camera lenses, which I was a little bit disappointed were only available for iPhone, not for... There might have been a Samsung Galaxy S6 version as well, but they had no Nexus 6. But I did get these, so one is an Olloclip 3-in-1 lens, and the other is from Stylus with a Z, and that is a 4-in-1 lens, and we'll be testing those on Liz's iPhone probably starting this weekend, and maybe we'll do it on the site as a phone camera lens shootout or something between the two. But
yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, that'll be fun stuff, and I'll be playing with my my newly acquired Android watch, even though it's not current gen, but it's new for me. And I guess that's about it at the moment.
Oh, a bunch of fun stuff. You guys, I want to go with Chuck to Cancun and check out some of the CE stuff and listen to you play, Fred. So you guys have got a bunch of good stuff going on. But before we conclude our show, we do want to thank again our sponsor, Audible.com. And if you're listening or watching, you can get a free trial, 30-day trial to Audible.com, and download one of over 180,000 titles to choose from and listen to that. Download and listen to that. Just go to audibletrial.com/mobilecupofjoe for your free audiobook and your free 30-day trial to Audible.com. So thank you. If you want to support us and the show, they're the ones that help us make this happen. So if you want to support them and us, go to audibletrial.com/mobilecupofjoe for your free audiobook and 30-day trial. But that does conclude our show. So again, #MCOJBrew if you have any other questions, comments, concerns, or rebuttals. And also send a little something to the rest of the guys who weren't able to make it this week. But we'll hopefully have just about everybody here, unless Chuck has to sneak out early to go to Cancun next week. But we will be back next week at 9 Eastern. But for Chuck and Fred, Tony, Joe, Greg, and myself, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next week. Good night.